Okay, well, welcome to Third Thursday Environmental Series. Third Thursday series is a program of free online events organized by representatives of the towns of Rochester, Marbletown, Rosendale, Gardner, and Olive. Tonight we have the Local Farmers Series number 3, Old School Farming. And we're going to talk about whether farmers are conservationists or environmentalists, and if there's some kind of a discussion between the two. That's what we're going to welcome. It's all about a discussion. On the surface, farmers and environmentalists, they seem to be on opposite ends of the spectrum, but that may or may not be true. We're going to find out. Um, we're going to talk about herbicide treatments and fertilizers and soils and streams. And it's going to be a discussion, so you don't have to wait till the end. If you have a question, you know how to raise your hand by now on the Zoom buttons. Um, Jake Wedemeyer is going to present, and he'll answer all your questions, and we'll talk about this. Let's see, Jake has been with Ulster County Soil and Water Conservation District for 22 years. His passion is dairy farming, and he worked for Crystal Spring Dairy Farm in Andes, New York, one of the nation's top Jersey herds. Jake's credentials are associates in environmental technology and ecology, bachelor in environmental science with a minor in chemistry, master's in geography, certified professional in erosion and sediment control, and certified crop advisor. Um, Apparently he's pretty well known around here. It seems like every time we mention this to somebody, they say, "Oh yeah, I know Jake." So I think you must get around. So take it away.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And nice to be with friends as well and getting to know everybody. So anyway, this is kind of a hybrid between my professional life and my personal life slash passions. And again, I think working for the Soil and Water Conservation District is one of the best jobs you can ever have, in my opinion. Because I always say this because it's a mix of building relationships with communities, whether it be homeowners, municipalities, farmers, different various groups, but it's all about relationship building. And as a result of that, that fosters trust, which is very important. And then when, municipalities, farmers, the local, the taxpayers, the people of this county need something, they know who to come to. So really, we're more of like a caring profession that provides technical assistance and also financial assistance, namely for agricultural best management practices. We also have, we're in contract with the New York City Department of Environmental Protection to do stream restoration projects. So they have deep pockets. They're our partners. That encompasses a third of Ulster County, and the other two-thirds, we try to get grants to help out municipalities and farms. So again, I think there's a shift in the social demographics within the New York City metropolitan area, and Ulster County is part of that to an extent, right? And I think that the general public, they're less in tune of farmers and their agricultural practices, and what a lot of things mean and the purpose of it. And our jobs are to inform people of agricultural practices, to inform municipalities, to inform environmental groups. I mean, there's a lot of things that I don't agree with in terms of ag. I mean, I'll be very blunt. I am being recorded, okay? And hopefully I won't get assassinated. But after this, but you have these major companies like Monsanto, they have a lot of power, a lot of political pull, and I've seen a big transition from, you know, the minimal herbicide use for various field crops to that's what all they do is, Roundup Ready everything. And that happened since 1996. So you talk to a lot of the old school farmers, and some of them are younger than me, and they said you can't replace iron with chemicals, meaning uh, mechanical methods, cultivation, right? They don't want to be over a barrel regarding, oh, we could only choose so many seeds that are Roundup Ready. We can't get the old cultivars that we got in the past that would canopy quickly, that would reduce weed pressure. So I've seen it myself looking at seed catalogs for various things. So there's certain things that are out of farmers' control, in terms of what's available. And a lot of it is just, trends with different types of chemistry. And some of that chemistry I don't agree with. But there are needs for herbicides. We are trying to feed 8.3 billion people, and you don't want to have yield losses because of weed pressure. At the same token, there's an over prescription of a lot of these things, and I don't know what's going to happen in the future. So I don't want to go off the deep end about commercial chemical agriculture. Most people want to do the right thing, and I'll give you an example of what's going on in this county. So what I did was we present to the legislature, a couple times a year, and our jobs are to inform them of what we've been up to. So I'll give you a brief synopsis of what we've done. So this is who we are with the district, and we have partners with the USDA, Natural Resource Conservation Service, and we also have a board of directors that governs us with 2 legislative officials. And we were created since the Dust Bowl in the 30s, right? And the only way for conservation, for the federal government to enter onto private lands is to have a local soil and water conservation district. So we are the local agency, okay? And in New York State, each county, except for New York City, has their own conservation district. City of New York has the 5 boroughs that cover a large area. So anyway, these are a lot of the projects that we do. State Ag and Markets is very supportive of our work. So this barnyard we did has everything to do with soil health, right? Instead of having cows outside feeding, on wet clay ground, compacting the soil, nutrient runoff, the farmer was using more fertilizer, okay, to fertilize their fields. Instead, we're trapping those nutrients undercover. It's better for herd health if they could eat and, in poop and bed undercover. And then in the spring, that manure and bedding is collected and spread on the fields in lieu of commercial fertilizer. So there's a lot of benefits. There's an economic benefit, there's a herd health, animal welfare benefit, and there's also a soil health benefit, and also a water quality benefit. Also, we're big into rotational grazing. So this is a recent project, and instead of turning on a tractor to harvest hay, let the cows do the work, okay? So we do cost share these types of programs as well. This is a dirty word, but we also deal with agrochemical mixing facilities. So a lot of what was approved back in the 70s just doesn't work. So the farmers are trying to use less product and store it and mix it in a contained facility, which is a water resource concern. Same thing with fuel. Even with the organic operations, they use more fuel than a conventional operation. So we do have cost share funding to replace fuel tanks. And typically, and everybody's homeowners, so in the event that you do burn oil, these tanks tend to rust from the inside out from condensation. So, when Grandpa put in a fuel tank back in 1968 and it's sinking in the mud, more often than not, it's at the end of its lifespan. And if you do have a fuel storage leak, that would equate to groundwater and surface water contamination and very expensive cleanup costs. So again, in our field, we have to be very objective. Again, we do a lot of stream restoration projects. Um, and a lot of what we do too is we used to put a lot of rock into these projects, riprap and big stone and stackables. And we found out that rock is just training wheels for stream natural processes. The best way to stabilize a stream is to use the rock, the hard structures, as training wheels, and then use native vegetation to establish the project. Okay. So we've had high success with that. But anytime you do a
Great.
plant, go ahead.
So you put the rocks down and then you put soil on top of the rocks and then you plant it?
So good question. So if you look at the lower right photo, the rocks are actually buried in the stream channel for grade control. Okay. And then there are rocks actually buried along the toe of the slope, but you can't even see them. So in this photo, where the garage is, there's actually a septic tank, right? So if we allowed the stream to erode, that septic tank would be exposed and vulnerable to being washed away into the stream. So again, rock is, we have infrastructure underneath and along the bank, and that's the training wheels. But what the glue that binds is establishment of vegetation, namely native vegetation. The one thing is you could, go out and plant trees and whatever you want and do riparian buffers, but we do have to account for deer pressure, and we've found some all natural deer repellents. So for you homeowners out there, if it's, you'd have to apply it. It's probably about $100 for a 1 gallon container, but it will last all season. So it is a very good investment. So we do a lot with controlling deer browse. One thing that you're not going to like to hear is that at times we do have to use herbicides for invasive species control. And it's something that we've experimented with over the years, not using any herbicides in regards to mechanical removal of Japanese knotweed and mugwort. But in certain instances, we do use a herbicide applicator that's more holistic to do that. Not our favorite thing. So how we avert invasive species on a stream restoration project is that you want topsoil, right? You want a good medium for the trees and and the grasses and the pollinator mixes to grow. And what we've learned is before we accept topsoil on a site, we'll actually investigate if it has any invasives in it. And I love to ride my motorcycle, so I've gone as far as Bovina and New Kingston to look at topsoil stockpiles and see if they have invasive species or not. And if they do, we reject it because there's no reason to work on private land and then bring in invasive species. And 2 years later, there's mugwort 4 feet high, right? And so again, more stream projects, a lot of surveying, but we're talking about agriculture. And again, this is how we do a lot of riparian plantings, all hands on deck, all native species. We're beautifying people's streamside properties by doing that.
Yeah, Jake, I was just wondering, do you know the name of the product to use for deer repellent?
I do have it on file. I forgot the name of it. We get it on Amazon. I could email it to you.
Yeah, okay, I think I'm probably getting the same thing because I got a gallon of it too.
Deer off?
I don't remember what it was called, but
I
never mind.
forgot. I mean, I get that question asked every 3 months, and I always forget what it is, but you can purchase it on Amazon.
Okay.
Can you go back one slide? The picture in the middle, is that a new riparian buffer in what is it? In Phoenicia?
That's the one. Yep, at the
Oh,
Emerson.
nice.
New
They just
Trevor.
opened that. Yeah, I just saw that on Hudson Valley One newspaper. Did you
Yeah,
guys work on that?
Yeah, I was at the ribbon cutting. So Bobby Taylor
Cool.
did that project. We worked together and we did a ribbon cutting last week. So there's a good fat photo of me. Yep. And that's more of an educational project. I mean, there's a lot of native wildflowers and pollinators, but it's a very good educational tool to inform the public, like, hey, this is what you could do with your streamside property. You know, it doesn't always have to be a lawn that's perfectly manicured. You know, you can let it grow wild and it has a lot of benefits.
It actually shouldn't be a yard that's perfectly manicured. That's not a riparian buffer. That's a yard. That's a
Yeah.
lawn.
Yeah, and when you're dealing with riparian species, namely native ones, and also native wildflower pollinator mixes incorporated with that, it really, in term of flooding events, you know, there's a lot more climate resilience. There's less erosion. It's all natural property protection. The caveat is that looks beautiful, but it takes at least 3 years of establishment and maintenance to get it to where it is now. So the M word, maintenance.
Yeah. And you're mute.
Hi, I was wondering, how do you test the topsoil to find out if it has invasive species? How do you find that stuff out?
You're gonna see the weeds sprouting. So if you're looking at a top soil stockpile area in April or May, you'll see weeds sprouting up.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's the least expensive way to do it.
Jake, excuse me, the one I see on Amazon is called Messina Concentrated Deer Stopper.
That's
So,
it. Thank you, Michael.
okay. Messina, so just think of the town up in northern New York, although it's spelled differently.
The caveat with that is if you have a really wet summer, like the summer of 2023, you're going to have to apply it at least every 10 days to make it effective because it does wash off. There is a natural surfactant in it, so that makes the deer repellent bind to the leaves, but it washes off over time.
Mhm.
So, the reason why I'm doing this presentation is that, you know, somebody had a, you know, inquiry about taking over a hayfield and, you know, how we were ruining habitat and not allowing natural vegetation to grow. And the thing is, I am a practical farmer, I have a hay business. I have a couple Jersey heifers, you know. So that's my passion. And we really try our best to be good stewards of the land. And so personally and professionally, you know, that's what I do. And so a lot of what we do with district programs is catered on the county needs, right? So we determined that what the Ulster County farmers need is more support with soil health practices, such as a cover crop program. So we do give recommendations with seeding rates, type of species, you know, if it's a multi-species mix or a single species, and also offering a no-till drill that we rent out at a low cost to Ulster County farmers. So the no-till drill in the picture on the left, that's $28,000 new. We deliver it and we charge $10 an acre for it to be used. So it's a lot less money than spending $27,000 on a piece of equipment that somebody's going to use maybe 2 days a year.
Wow.
Plan on expanding that to have a 12-foot no-till drill, a lime spreader, and a row mulcher. The lime spreader has everything to do with reducing fertilizer use. If you have a low pH, phosphorus is tied up in the soil. It's bound to the soil. If you get the pH to 6.2, right? So 7's neutral, you know, 6 is acidic, you know, 8 is basic. But if you have a pH of 6.2, that's when phosphorus is more readily available to the plant. In certain parts of the country and New York State, calcium carbonate is naturally occurring in the soil, right? So we call that, high lime soil, right? We're in a low lime soil condition in Ulster County, and namely in eastern New York. So we're all about doing nutrient management, taking soil samples, reviewing soil analysis results, providing recommendations, cost sharing with cover crops. The beauty of cover crops are that, number one, any nitrogen that's in the soil that the plant didn't use, it's going to do two things. It's either going to leach into the soil, it's going to go down, or it's going to volatilize up in the atmosphere, right? So the rye, that's a very common, quick-growing cover crop. That rye takes up that excess nitrogen. The second thing that cover crops do is, when do you plant cover crops?
In the winter or fall?
In the fall. And what happens in the fall typically?
All the other plants die or go dormant?
Flooding, right? So we try to plant cover crops before October 15th, but again, we are dealing with climate change. But a lot of people plant cover crops up until Thanksgiving or well into December, and they still grow. But if you get a cover crop in and it's established, say that there's about 2 weeks of establishment, like that photo on the right. So it's not that established. That's like 2 weeks in, right after it germinated. But a lot of farm fields are in river valleys prone to flooding. That little bit of growth can definitely aid in reducing soil erosion. We want to keep our soil in place. So again, there's nitrogen uptake. It reduces soil erosion. And then it's a green manure when it's incorporated in the spring. So there's a lot of benefits to cover crops. Also, it is allelopathic rye, so that does reduce weed pressure. So if you have a really weedy field that's in cultivation, planting winter rye as a cover crop is very helpful.
Casey has a question.
Thank you. Yeah. Jake, first of all, this is so interesting. Thank you very, very much. So I'm from the town of Olive, and one of our CAC members really wanted to be here tonight to listen to you. He couldn't, but he wondered if you, he has a couple of questions about agrovoltaics, and I don't know if that's something that you were planning to cover. If so, I should wait until you get to that part of the presentation.
It's not part of the presentation, but we're very fluid. So Cornell Fruit Lab is looking into agrovoltaics with vineyards and orchards.
Mm-hmm.
And that technology, I don't want to misspeak. I mean, Jared Bono knows more about this than me, but it's more widely adopted in Europe, okay? It's not as adopted in the United States. But ag and markets, and including myself, strongly feel that putting solar panels in crop fields like this one is a big no-no, because you're taking valuable farmland, important farmland, out of production for solar power generation. And some towns, like the town of Rochester, I worked with Michael Baden, where they wanted to pass a ordinance where if it's like prime agricultural soils in the town, then solar panels aren't allowed.
That makes sense, and that's really interesting. Is there any like within our area, within Ulster County, is there anywhere that, or any type of agrivoltaics that might actually work well, that's not like taking away that's not actually taking away the farmland, but that could be used both for agriculture and for the solar panels? Like, is there a way to, I mean, one of the things Simon mentioned is grazing animals. Like he says not goats for some reason, but cattle or sheep. Is that a possibility? Like if you're grazing your cows on a particular field, could you also be using it for solar panels?
With cattle, from my experience, they're one of the most destructive creatures on the planet.
Mm.
And in order to have the infrastructure to support agrivoltaic solar panels above them, it's going to be I'm not sure if it's cost effective.
Mm.
You know, I mean, I think having agrivoltaics with goats and sheep, they're a lot gentler. Okay. There's one farm that we know of, it might be in Dutchess or Columbia County, that's implementing that with the sheep herd. I'm not sure. I mean, I think, in my opinion, again, I know enough to be dangerous, but we have, plenty of Walmart parking lots that we could put solar panels. They already have three-phase power, right? There's a lot of industrial buildings. There's plenty of landfills. My family's from Germany, so on occasion we do a visit. And when I drove up the Autobahn, there was not 1 inch that had any solar panels along the farm fields. So there was a fence. We drove from Munich up to where my family's from in Dinslaken, so that was about 350 miles. Along the grass median, there were thousands of solar arrays. So I got thinking to myself, well, why don't we do that along the New York State Thruway and I-90, right? So we already, we have the infrastructure there. We have, instead of mowing it, you can mow less of an area, have it in solar panels, and also have solar car charging stations. That's just my idea. The infrastructure's already there. They already have the drainage, right? I think when you're putting solar panels on certain fields, like if they're poorly drained, you're creating more, vast impervious surfaces, and then you have to deal with the stormwater runoff from that.
All right, yeah, I'll pass that along to Simon. That's really helpful and it's interesting. Yeah, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have another question. Did you have a question, Anne, or?
No, my question was, what is agrivoltaics, but I pretty much figured it out.
Okay. You were talking about flooding, and I think it's a Wallkill farm. There's the market there right outside of New Paltz on the other side of the bridge. That floods twice a year. Are you familiar with that farm?
Yeah, Wallkill View Farm. It does flood, but they do welcome it. But again, we're working on enhancing their riparian buffer. And again, we have one of my colleague, Bobby Taylor, he's like the riparian buffer expert, so we go to him. So the nice thing is it does flood, and they're open to riparian buffer improvements, expanding the buffer. I mean, those fields are meant to flood. So again, riparian buffer enhancement's very important, right? So, in the past, farmers wanted to like maximize like their acreage along the stream, and they're finding over time that if they maximize that, and typically along a field edge along a stream, right, that soil is compacted from equipment traffic. So basically that sheet flow off the field over the bank and it erodes. So moving that back and having at least a 50-foot buffer will definitely preserve the stream. But again, we're dealing with mugwort, so we're going to have to address that. The farmer's willing to mow, keep the mugwort down. And we have to make the buffer equipment friendly so they can back a brush hog in just to mechanically harass the mugwort. But also the cover crop program, it's like that tractor there and the drill, that's at Wallkill View Farm. But having cover crops along that floodplain is critical. So if they could get an early harvest and get the cover crop in by September 15th, that helps with flood resilience. But they do well. I mean, those fields are meant to flood. There's a lot of fine sediment deposition there.
Are they, because I see the big piles of white powder, I guess, is that the phosphorus that you're talking about? Big giant piles of white powder,
Oh, that's lime.
lime. So is that then going to flood into the Wallkill
Um,
or
well,
any other kind of
like, yeah, it could flood into the Wallkill. Like farming is like legalized gambling. But the idea is that if you apply lime in the fall, that's the best time. The lime, it takes about probably 6 to 8 months for it to react with the soil. So they could apply the lime now, and then if fingers crossed, when things start to green up in April, it would actually bind to the soil, okay? But if they applied lime, they put down 300 tons of lime and it got washed away, through a flood, that lime, you're pretty much raising the pH of the water anyway, so it would be no water quality issue. It's not like, oh, lime's a pollutant. So it would dissolve quite quickly. So it's not a nutrient, right? So it's calcium carbonate.
and what about the green algae in the Wallkill? I heard that that's coming from farms in New Jersey.
You know, um, it's interesting. If you talk to somebody who's ready to retire, they're going to tell you the truth because they have nothing to lose. So, my colleague Travis and I, we have to do our continuing education credits with their certified crop advisor certifications. And he did his graduate research in the Chesapeake Bay, and there was a lot of agricultural pollution, namely from phosphorus. Okay. So they did all these farm best management practices for 40 years, and they reduced non-point source pollution dramatically, to find out that the municipal stormwater, combined stormwater systems were the contributors to nutrients, namely phosphorus, into water bodies. So the shift went from farming communities, farming areas, to urban and suburban expansion. Again, we're big into climate resilient farming. The state is very supportive. Back in 2017, New York State Ag and Markets had $500,000 devoted to this for soil health practices, right? And soil health projects. That pot of money went from 500,000, right, to $30 million, right? So now we're in 2024, and the district was rewarded $166,000 for a couple more CRF projects. And one of them is this is a map of an organic farm. And the big thing is, and we're doing this on a couple farms, an organic farm and a conventional vegetable sweet corn operation, is irrigation water management, reducing irrigation water usage. And also, they have a solar panel and 220, and we're doing electrification. So we're going from diesel, right? Diesel pumps to electric pumps. The only caveat is a lot of people are leery of Central Hudson. So some people are like, well, I really want to keep my diesel pump as a backup in case my rates go up. But having electric, going from diesel to electric gives them more options, especially like when the electric pumps are variable rate, right? And with the technology, you could adjust the rate of the pumps just with your iPhone. Another thing too, with having a good irrigation system, you're reducing water usage, and also it promotes crop rotation if you do it right. So a lot of people's cropping system is predicated on how complete their irrigation system is. So through cost share funding, we're able to help them get to that next level so they could implement more, better crop rotation, which helps with the disease cycle and better crop yields. Again, here's Travis, lower right hand corner. We do a lot of soil sampling with our cover crop program. We started it in 2022, and we only had 535 acres total. Actually, 521. Now we went up to 684 acres last year, and it was a really wet year, 2023. Now we're over 800 acres in cover crop adoption in this county, and it's been very successful. So again, a lot of the success is the relationships working with us. Like, hey, we can work with the district. They're going to help us out. They'll help us calibrate the drill. They offer it at a low cost. They reimburse us. They're very friendly, and they come to us a lot, and so that's the beauty of things. And it's a lot of running around and data collection to see, where the farmers are at in terms of soil health. But I mean, I could think of like one farmer in my career that's really went out of his way to do the wrong thing. So what I told him not to do, he did, and he created issues. And that would be one farmer out of the 370 farms that we work with. So less than 1%. Okay. Again, another fat photo of me. This is our no-till drill. And again, the beauty of that is if you're looking at carbon sequestration, tillage, full width tillage, or even disking before you plant your cover crop, you could eliminate at least one tillage pass, and which is critical. And if you're reducing tillage passes, right, the less you run that tractor, you have less compaction and less fuel usage. And that drill gets the seed right where it needs to be, so there's no guesswork. So again, a lot of what we do is we did have a soil health field day, and I was surprised there were over 30 people that attended from 4 different counties. The trick is if you want people to attend something, believe it or not, charge them money. So we charged a nominal fee of $10, and then we provided refreshments, and everybody showed up. They ate up the cheese and crackers and vegetables. Everybody had some iced tea. We have a strong partnership with Cornell Cooperative Extension. Great people. So on the stream side and on the ag side. So again, part of our job, we're here to inform. And, the whole thing is through trust, right? In relationships that leads to adoption. Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. It may not be related to this, though. I was just curious about you. You were talking I'm going backwards to Monsanto. Um, do any of the farmers around here who are raising, I guess, corn crops, because there's a lot of them, but they seem like they're smaller family farms. Are they using Monsanto? Or is that only the CAFO farms?
Unfortunately, everybody's using Monsanto, or
Everybody.
almost everybody. Yeah. So the small family farms, they're doing corn silage and grain corn. They feel that they're over a barrel. I mean, so again, 10 years ago, you would, order your seed, and you didn't have to buy the Roundup Ready, technology or genetics, but now if they want to get, a set of heritage seed, which is hard to get, and then you have to pay for shipping, they feel like their options are limited. So yeah, it's really sad, and then when we go, when we get our do our lay down our continuing education credits, you have Cornell University on one hand saying, hey, Roundup Ready, there's even more weed resistant weeds, okay? And they're like, this stuff is overused, in so many words, it's not working. And then if we get our professional development credits, at 5 o'clock, there's a rep from Monsanto, and he's like, well, we have new chemistry available. And I'm thinking to myself, now what is that now? So they're paying this guy probably double what I'm making, triple, to promote this product. And I just think they're just over marketing and overusing it.
what makes Davenport's corn taste better than some other corn?
I'm gonna answer your question and Alan's question. So with sweet corn, it's not a Roundup Ready system. Roundup Ready is for grain corn and corn silage. That's animal feed. Uh, with Davenport's, both of them, they're using they varieties like you have Silver Queen, that's a white sweet corn, and other sweet. They're picking out varieties in the sweet corn world that work with the climate, and also they have really good soil. And they pick it, and it's fresh. And as soon as they pick it, they cool it. That corn isn't sitting around, so we have some of the best sweet corn in the Northeast.
Mhm.
Yes.
Uh, you, one thing you didn't talk about was integrated pest management. I don't know if you get involved with that, and then related to that, how are you dealing with the controversy over neonicotinoids?
All right, so Cornell does have the Northeast, their program that deals with fruit and vegetable crops. And so they do have specialists that do IPM, integrated pest management, and they do a lot of scouting, and they deal with the entire Northeast, so from Orange County all the way up to Malone, okay? And they're very skilled people, and so they work very closely with farmers with IPM, so they reduce insecticide use. And the thing is, it's all about the consumer. So if the consumers don't mind an earworm like European corn borer in their corn, then they would buy it. But the problem is, in order to sell wholesale to supermarkets, peppers, sweet corn, tomatoes, it has to be perfect. It has to have a certain criteria for it to be saleable. So with the IPM program, the farmers do have to use various tools, but with IPM they reduce that reliance. They only do it on an as needed basis.
And then neonics, are you guys talking about that?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a touchy subject. So the idea, like in my world, the neonics deal with corn seed maggot and cutworm. So if you have like the neonics are used with plowed ground that if you have a ground that's in sod and then you plow it and there's a lot of organic matter, then the corn seed maggot and cutworm thrive on that. And that's so 20 years ago, corn seed maggot was a real problem. But it was just something you lived with, with your first rotation going from a sod into a row crop. And then with the neonics, that resolved that problem. So like, oh, the problems are solved, but the farmers got hooked on it. It's like, boy, this really works. And the thing is that they don't want to have an economic yield loss when they do a crop rotation. So my concern is they're gonna ban neonics and then put a more harmful and expensive product on the market to replace that, to substitute that. So I don't know.
I just wondered what you have to say about the Hudson Valley Farm Hub, if anything. What do you think their place is in the county's agricultural world?
They're fantastic. They really help a lot of farmers. They really work with us. When we were looking into purchasing a no-till drill, they've been very generous with their time. What works, what doesn't work in terms of cover crop termination strategies, sans herbicide, they've been very helpful. I really enjoy working with them. I'm still really close with John Gill. And I was a little leery at first when they took over and they were trying to find their place in the Hudson Valley and the ag community. And like with John Gill, I'd have my dog with me, and and he and I just had this great relationship. And then when they took over, it's like no dogs allowed. So my dog's nickname was Stinky. He goes, Stinky's not allowed here anymore. I'm like, really? I was like, well, what kind of people are they, But then they've found their place over time, and they've been, very resourceful and very generous with sharing information. So we collaborate a lot. In my opinion, they've been very instrumental with the Lower Asopa Stream Management Plan. They have a diverse and very hardworking staff.
What are they, are they producing crops there that they sell? What are they doing?
So a lot of what they're producing, they don't want to compete with, the private sector or farmers, but they do a lot of donations with food banks. And also a lot of what they're doing is experimental. So Cornell partners with them. I mean, they're just doing a lot of different things in terms of reducing weed pressure organically, improving soil health. I mean, they have the resources to do the research, and they've been very generous with sharing that information and equipment as well.
Okay. So you think that that land is being well used?
I think so, especially if everybody's learning from them.
So what they're getting out of that is spreading around to other farmers?
Yeah, to a lot of people, to farmers, to CCE, to us, the district. I mean, if we ever had a catastrophe where that we couldn't get food, elsewhere, I think they would definitely help out the Hudson Valley region and produce a lot of healthy food. I mean, they're very community oriented.
Just going back to another thing that you were talking about earlier, when you see corn up right now that's all dead, that's all grain, that's all for animals, right?
Yeah, it's either gonna combine it or run it with a corn picker sheller. Yep.
And that's all, everything all ground up together. The corn cobs, the leaves, the stalks, it's all ground together, and that goes to animal feed.
No, what they do is they shell the kernels, they get off the cob. So it's basically dried corn. And
Okay.
the reason why it's, brown is they need to get it below 17% moisture before they combine it or pick it. Because if it's over 17%, that corn can mold and it is toxic to animals. I mean, horses, pigs, cows. So there's a lot of toxins like fungi associated with harming animals. So you want some years it's really hard to dry down corn, and you have to use propane, namely, to dry down the corn, or air. I mean, those old corn cribs, they're air dryers. But if they could get the corn under 17% and then store it in a bin, they don't have to dry it. That goes to animal feed, pig feed, chicken feed, horse feed, with grains, cattle feed. Some of it might be mixed with dog food. Same thing with soybeans. They have to, when they combine soybeans, that's used for feed and other products. Plastics, believe it or not, all natural plastics. Soybeans are used for a lot of different industrial purposes as well. And they are a nitrogen fixer. So if you look at certain farms, they just have like a 2 rotation cycle, corn, soy. And it's like, well, why don't they do more? Because, with corn and soy, that's what the markets will bear. So Coshecton buys a lot of corn and soy from local farmers.
So local farmers are growing soy also?
They are,
Hmm.
but it is a nitrogen fixer. It's a good thing to have.
There's a lot of small farms in the area that are growing vegetables, either for market, say in New York City, or for local CSAs. Do you work differently with those type of farms than some of the larger ones?
I'd say the same. I think their needs are the same, but at a smaller scale. Um, yeah, I think, again, we're getting the larger drill to accommodate the larger farmers. The drill in the upper left-hand photo, that's better for the smaller farmers. I think with the organic growers, they do a lot more fallowing to build up organic matter. Some of the larger farmers do the same, but their needs are pretty much the same, but at a smaller scale in terms of irrigation, soil management.
And I was interested in your comment about farms taking out diesel in favor of electric pumps and I guess probably other electric equipment. Is the state supporting you in that? Is NYSERDA in?
With the climate resilient farming grants, yeah, and they're getting more and more competitive. But the electrification of a lot of things is being supported. But again, I'm being recorded now. Don't share this with Central Hudson, but the people have a distrust with the rates. So it's like, well, if we convert to electric, then that increases their demand, and will that be more cost effective than diesel?
It's not only farmers that have that feeling. I think a lot of urban folks that are being encouraged to put in electrify their homes are feeling the same thing.
Yeah, and I've been around this most of my life, and nobody wants to deal with the stinky diesel pump, and then you have to haul fuel to it and maintain it. It's like if you could just put a variable speed irrigation pump in and flick a switch, that's so much easier and it'll last a lifetime.
Do you visit farms in Germany just out of curiosity? And are they highly electrified now?
We don't. It's mainly, vacation or family stuff. It's like for a week, it's like we land and I have a schedule with my family, but I make my family nuts because I'm looking at what they're doing. And a lot of what they're doing is what I see is lower horsepower requirements for the most part. So if you have a 70 cow dairy, your big tractor's 70 horse. And they're air cooled, so they're a lot more efficient on everything they do. Like here, most people have a 100 horsepower, 130 horsepower tractor, and that burns more fuel. So they're very, very efficient. The problem we're finding that really pained me is that if you had a dairy, again, dairy's my background. Say you're milking 70 cows in Germany, there was a milk quota. So it's all about supply and demand. Well, the EU back in 2014 decided to lift the quota, and the farmers are like, what are you doing? Our prices are going to be suppressed with milk flooding the market because everybody's going to take on more cows. So everybody took on more cows. There were protesting with Molotov cocktails in Brussels at the EU headquarters. And of course, dairy prices dropped. Then the herds were bigger. Then there were more environmental resource concerns by having these huge dairies on the same land base, right? And what are you going to do with the manure, nitrous oxides? I mean, it's just a whole mess. But if they kept those farms small and controlled the milk supply where it did not exceed the demand, we wouldn't have these resource concerns now. Same thing in the United States. I mean, we're with climate resilient farming, is that these dairies have gotten so big and they're storing manure, and the manure is getting stored, and then it's releasing methane, right? Nitrous oxide. So we used public money to spend, say, $1 million on a manure storage to reduce nutrient runoff. And that manure, when it goes anaerobic, it's producing methane. Now we're dealing with a greenhouse gas concern, right? With these big dairies. I mean, when I was younger, if you were milking 500 cows, that was huge. Typical dairy, if you're kind of considered medium sized, about 100 head, 120, anything over 100 was considered like, yeah, it's a big farm. So now they're milking like 2,000 head, 1,000 head. And so first they paid for the manure storage, with public dollars, and the farmer would have to come up with a lot. So say if it's $1 million manure storage, the farmer might have to contribute up to 400 to 500,000, pay for half of it. Now we have a methane problem, right? Then they're going to put in an $800,000 cover with a flare to convert methane into CO2. It's so expensive.
Yeah, and
Smaller, we wouldn't have these, expensive projects and these major resource concerns. And agriculture accounts for roughly 11% of the greenhouse gas emissions. I think it's just from large animal agriculture. I wish we were back to the days where you can make a living off the 60 cows, no more.
And the state's doing nothing to address that.
They are with the roofs and covers, right, to reduce methane emissions, but the state can't regulate economies, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, Canada does it with the milk quota. Europe did do it, past tense. I mean, I wish we'd learned from our mistakes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Can you bring
so
us back up again? Okay.
one more thing. So this is my hayfield. I always like to put that in some of my presentations. And again, a lot of us, I mean, I work with the farmers. We love the land. We love the animals. We love nature. And you're looking at a field that, a pretty big field. And when again, I try to, I have an adequate riparian buffer or buffers, right? And you're dealing with a lot of various critters, right? The critters you got fawns, right, that are dropped in the high grass. You got turtles, you have turkeys, and you learn how to work with them to minimize any fatalities. So we're all in a rush, for example. We're all in a rush to get it done, and we're dealing with, variable weather, right? And what I found, and the farmers I work with need to be gentle. We don't have to go 10 miles an hour mowing that, whacking down the field. I mean, everything's so fast. So what we do is we go around the fields very slowly at first, do a couple passes, take a look for the fawns, take a look for the turtles, look for the mama, the hen, and what's going on. So even though we have bigger, faster equipment, it really pays to slow down and take a look before you go crazy, So, and just being gentle with the land, because we want to do this. I mean, I want to do this until I drop, and I don't want to mess up the land, and I don't want to hurt anybody, So that's where I'm coming from, and a lot of us are. And I was doing a grazing system for a farmer, and his nephew was fishing, and he goes, "There's a snake in the stream. Let's go kill it." And the farmer said, why should we kill the snake? What did the snake do to you? Actually, we need the snake, and the snake needs us by us leaving the snake alone. Be respectful to the creatures because we need each other. So that's where we're coming from.
When you say we're, is that all the farmers or your group of friends or?
All the farmers that I've worked with, and that's over 370, they're very respectful of the creatures. They're very respectful, of wildlife. They're respectful of the soil. There's only one farmer I've worked with in 22 years where I said, "What are you doing?" And on many different levels. And, "Oh, I need more corn ground. I'm going to plow right up to the stream's edge, and I'm going to spread, 30,000 gallons of manure per acre." And I'm like, "Why?" And he thought it was funny, and that I didn't like, but that's 1 out of 370. And in life, that's a very good statistic. Everybody else, they're very respectful. I mean, we have to work with the land, We like looking at deer. We like looking at the turtles and the turkeys and the hawks, and we get it.
Yeah. Casey?
Jake, I just wanted to thank you again. This was really wonderful, and I loved what you just said and the way that you ended. I'm wondering if there's a way that we or the folks who are listening in who are not farmers, I'm not a farmer, how can we support your work?
Like us on Instagram.
Okay.
You know, I think spread the word. Not that we need more work to do, but you know,
Mhm.
if your town has an issue, you know, or you have, or if you want us to present, or if you have a landowner with an erosion issue or anything, you know, we're here to help. Spread the word.
Okay, thank you. Do you have, was your contact information in one of the slides that I missed?
I did that on purpose, so you can't contact me. No, I don't have my but our website is just Google Ulster County Soil and Water and it'll
Okay,
come up, okay?
okay,
And with our phone number and my email address, and John has my contact information as well.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.